Did your mother never teach you any manners? The words tore through the wail of fire sirens like a blade ripping cloth. They came from the mouth of a child, and they were aimed at the chest of a man who had not been spoken to that way in 17 years. East Side Tenements was burning, 3 long rows of low-rent walk-ups, the kind of buildings the city of Ashford had been promising to inspect for 2 decades and never had, were folding into themselves under a sky the color of dirty cotton. Black smoke rolled out of the third-floor windows in slow, fat coils. Glass cracked somewhere on the north end and fell in a long, glittering rain onto the asphalt below. A motorcade of 4 black SUVs cut through the chaos and stopped at the curb. The man who stepped out did not run. He buttoned the second button of a charcoal overcoat, and his pale gray-blue eyes took in the scene the way a surgeon takes in a chest cavity. Cold, measuring, already deciding. Nathan Cole, Marcus, push them back. 200 meters, now. Marcus Vance, 6'4", and built like a closed door, was already moving. Within 90 seconds, every uniformed officer on the block was answering to him. Sawhorses went up, tape went out. The crowd realized too late what was happening. My sister is in there. My boy is on the 4th floor. Nathan did not turn his head. His face did the thing it always did, which was nothing. Heartless. Somebody hissed. The chant began in the back and worked forward. Murderer. Murderer. That was when the small yellow shape squeezed under the police tape. She was 7. Her raincoat was 3 sizes too large, and the left shoulder had slid halfway down her arm. Her sneakers were Converse, once white, now caked in harbor mud. In her right hand, pressed against her ribs, was a stuffed rabbit, gray, threadbare. One ear flopped permanently forward. She walked straight at Nathan Cole. You. Yes, you. The big man with the scary face. Did your mother never teach you any manners? The chanting faltered. Something about the silence the child carried with her made the adult stop. Nathan turned his head a fraction. Behind him, Marcus's right hand drifted toward the inside of his suit jacket. Nathan lifted one finger, just one, 2 inches off his thigh. Marcus stopped. Nathan looked down at her. My mother is in there. Her voice did not crack. Her name is Rachel. She is in apartment 2B, and she is alive in there right now. And you are standing here in your fancy coat making the firemen stop, and you are going to let her die, aren't you? A photographer somewhere snapped a picture. Nobody noticed. Nathan crouched, slowly. The motion was so unfamiliar to the men behind him that one of them actually took a step back. Do you know who I am? No. Should you? I don't care. I know you are doing wrong. For the first time since the SUVs had arrived, Nathan Cole's face did something. It was small, less than a flicker. But behind the bone of his forehead, a hairline crack opened in a wall that had been sealed for 17 years, and through that crack, for half a second, you could see a much younger man looking out. Then the wall closed. A patrol officer lifted Khloe Bennett under the arms and carried her, kicking, back behind the tape. The rabbit's gray ear bobbed against his sleeve as she went. Nathan straightened. He watched her go. His pale eyes traveled, against his own will, down to the small worn animal in her grip. They stayed there 1 beat too long. Marcus saw it. He did not say a word. 30 minutes earlier, the man in the charcoal coat had been somewhere else entirely. The 40th floor of Cole Tower looked down on the harbor, the way a hawk looks down on a wheat field. Nathan had been standing at the window with a tumbler of black coffee. No ice, no company. The secure phone in his breast pocket vibrated once. One vibration meant number 9. A homicide lieutenant inside the Ashford PD who had been on Nathan's quiet payroll for 6 years, and who had never, in all that time, called without a reason that mattered. Talk. Cole. Listen fast. The voice on the other end was already moving. The gas main under East Side Tenements has been cut. Not corroded. Cut. Someone went in through the storm drain last night with a pipe wrench and a hex blade. Pressure on the line is climbing. Whatever they want to happen down there is going to happen in the next hour. How bad? Whole block bad. A fireball that takes out everything inside 2 football fields. Get out of there, Cole. You are the audience they bought tickets for. Nathan was already dialing the city fire dispatch. He gave them the address, the threat, and the pressure reading in the clipped sentences of a man used to being obeyed. The dispatcher came back 40 seconds later, and her voice had changed. Sir, we have an obstruction on Marlin Avenue. 4 trucks down. Looks like a delivery rollover. Traffic locked in both directions. Engine 7 is rerouting through Kessler. ETA 12 minutes. 12 minutes was 9 minutes too many. He dialed the captain's private cell. It rang. It went to voicemail. He set the phone face down on the desk. Marcus. Garage. Now. The Lincoln took the corner of Pier Boulevard at 60. By the time the lead SUV reached East Side, the third floor was already throwing flame. But that was not what made Nathan's jaw lock as he stepped out. He could hear it under everything else. A low, wet, building hum coming up through the soles of his shoes. The main was singing. Any spark inside the foundation now. Any fool kicking down a door on the ground floor. Any panicked tenant with a lighter. And the entire block went vertical. 200 meters was the kill radius. He had measured it on the drive over. He gave the piece. Anyone in that building came out alive was if the people outside it stayed outside it. Everybody he held behind that tape was a body the bomb squad still had a chance to save when they finally got the van through Kessler with the shut-off rig. He did not say any of that out loud. Explanations were a weakness. They invited the next question, and the question after that, and somewhere down that line was the one his enemies were always waiting for him to answer. So he let them spit at his shoes and let them call him a murderer because it was cheaper than burying them. Boss. Marcus's voice came in low, at his shoulder. The kid. Nathan turned his head a quarter inch. The patrol officer was carrying her back behind the tape one-handed. The yellow raincoat had ridden up. Her sneakers were kicking air. And clutched against her ribs, jolting with every step, was the small gray shape with the floppy ear and the resewn seam under the chin. Something inside Nathan Cole's chest that he had welded shut at the age of 19 made a sound only he could hear. Lily had been 9. Lily had owned that exact rabbit. Same size. Same gray. Same crooked left ear. Their mother had bought a pair of them at the church fair the summer before everything ended, and Lily had carried hers into the burning house the night she died, because a child reaches for what a child loves before she reaches for the door. He had pulled what was left of that rabbit out of the ash himself. 3 hours later, with hands that did not know yet they would not stop shaking for a year. Now another little girl, in another fire, was being carried away with the same animal pressed to her ribs. His right hand closed at his side. The knuckles went white around the bone. Marcus saw the fist. Marcus said nothing. Above them, the third-floor windows blew out in a long, slow exhale of orange, and somewhere underneath the building, the gas main kept singing its patient, terrible song. The patrol officer set Khloe down inside the Red Cross relief tent and turned away before she could ask him anything. The tent smelled like wet canvas and instant coffee and the particular kind of fear that has nowhere left to go. Nobody looked at the 7-year-old in the yellow raincoat sitting in the corner with her sneakers not quite reaching the ground. She asked the volunteer about her mother. The volunteer's eyes did the small, soft, terrible thing adults' eyes did when they had been told not to say anything yet. She promised to come back. She did not come back. Khloe pressed the rabbit harder against her ribs. Her eyes were red. They were not wet. There was a difference, and her mother had taught her that difference at the kitchen table when she was 5. Crying does not fix anything, baby. Watching does. You watch, you remember, and later you decide what to do with what you saw. So Khloe watched. The woman with the camera light came through the tent flap. A name badge clipped to her lapel said Deanna Holt, Ash 7 News. The man she pointed her microphone at was a tenant from the second building. Soot black across one cheek, a baby in his arm. Nathan Cole stopped the fireman. He stood there and watched. He let us die in there. The camera light loved that sentence. The camera light moved on. A man in a gray suit walked into the parking lot outside the tent, and the air around him changed. The white hair was combed in a single clean wave. 2 assistants trailed behind with clipboards. Councilman Bradley Hayes, somebody whispered. Hayes took his place in front of the cameras and let the lights find him. I will not, he said, and paused for effect, allow a known criminal to take command of the emergency response of this city. Nathan Cole will answer for what happened here today. Applause from the press. Khloe did not applaud. Khloe was watching the part of the parking lot the cameras were not looking at. Behind the third black car, half hidden by an open trunk, Hayes had stepped out of frame. A man was waiting for him, leaner than Hayes, in a black leather jacket, whose zipper had clearly broken and been replaced by snap buttons that did not quite line up. A long, pale scar ran down the left side of his neck. Above it, climbing onto the jaw, was the curl of a tattoo, a snake's tail, ending in a small, careful rattle. The man passed Hayes a thick brown envelope. Hayes did not count it. He slid it inside the breast of his suit jacket in one practiced motion, the way a man slides something he has slid 100 times before. He patted the place where it sat. He smiled at the man with the snake tattoo. The man with the snake tattoo did not smile back. Then Hayes walked back into the camera light, and the smile he wore there was a different smile entirely. Khloe lowered her gaze to the scuffed toes of her sneakers. She let her face do nothing. Her mother had taught her that one too. When you do not understand what is happening, remember the faces. Remember the hands. Remember what was passed between them. You can figure out the meaning later. Faces. You only see once. A soft, bird-light hand came down on her shoulder. Oh, sweetheart. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson had lived 3 doors down on Pier Lane for as long as Khloe could remember. 70 years old. White hair pinned at the back. A coat thrown over the house dress she had been wearing when the smoke alarm went off. Her hands smelled, even now, like the lemon soap she used on her dishes. Oh, baby. Oh, my baby. She gathered Khloe in. They took your mama to St. Mary's. The ambulance left 10 minutes ago. She is alive. Do you hear me? She is alive. Something in Khloe's chest, the small held thing that had been holding everything else up since the first siren, gave one quick, dry sob. One. That was all she let it have. She wiped her face on the cuff of the yellow sleeve. Her gray eyes were already steady again. Mrs. Patterson, she said. I need to go to the hospital. Right now. The cab ride to street. Mary's took 11 minutes, and Mrs. Patterson paid the driver in folded singles she had pulled from a coin purse stitched with a faded image of a lighthouse. The ICU waiting room was lit, the way hospital waiting rooms were always lit. White from the ceiling, white off the tile, white reflected back from the laminate of every chair, until the whole room looked like a place that had been bleached on purpose so nothing could hide in it. The clock above the nurse's station read 47 minutes past 9. Khloe climbed into a plastic chair against the far wall. Her sneakers swung an inch above the floor. The yellow raincoat had begun to dry stiff around her shoulders, and it crackled when she moved. Mrs. Patterson sat down beside her, pulled a clear plastic bag from her tote, and produced a half-finished knitting project, pale green wool, 2 wooden needles. The old woman did not say anything about why she had brought it. She just began the soft, even click of stitch on stitch, the way another grandmother might have begun a prayer, and the sound was steadier than any of the adults moving past them in scrubs. Khloe watched the double doors of the ICU. 40 more minutes. An orderly pushing a man on a gurney whose face she did not see. A nurse drinking a Diet Coke at the desk. Then the doors swung outward, and a tall, tired man in pale blue scrubs walked toward them with a clipboard tucked under one arm. Mrs. Patterson? Family of Rachel Bennett? This is her daughter, Mrs. Patterson said, and her hand came down warmly on top of Khloe's. Dr. Carson crouched. He did not speak down to the child. He spoke across to her, the way her second-grade teacher did when something was important. Your mom is alive, sweetheart. She has second-degree burns on her left arm and her shoulder. She breathed in a lot of smoke. We have her on oxygen, and she is going to sleep for most of tonight. But she is going to be okay. Do you hear me? She is going to be okay. Khloe nodded once. She did not trust her throat with words yet. I have to tell you something else. Carson's eyes went briefly to Mrs. Patterson, and then back. She is alive because the fire department got to her building faster than anyone in that neighborhood had any right to expect. Someone called the fire in within the first minute, before the smoke was even visible from the street. Whoever made that call probably saved 14 lives tonight. Your mother's was one of them. Khloe's head tilted half an inch to the side. If the man in the charcoal coat had stopped the fire trucks, then how had the fire trucks gotten there in time? It was not the kind of thought a 7-year-old was supposed to be having at 10 o'clock at night in an ICU waiting room, but her mother's voice was sitting very quietly inside her ear. 2 facts that do not fit are not 2 facts, baby. They are a question. Carson straightened, said something kind to Mrs. Patterson, and walked back through the swinging doors. Khloe did not say anything for a long time. Then, quietly, into the green wool. Mrs. Patterson, can I ask you about my dad? The needles paused for half a stitch, then resumed. You can ask me anything, child. I do not really remember him. You were 4, sweetheart. He had cancer. It moved fast. By the time the doctors found it, there was nothing for them to do. Your mama held his hand at the end, and then she came home and held you, and she has been holding you ever since. The old woman's voice did not waver, but she did not look up from the wool either. She is the kind of woman who works 2 jobs without complaining about either of them. Days at the Sunshine Daycare, with the babies, nights at Marlin's, washing dishes until midnight. She has been saving every dollar she could pinch for almost a year. She wanted to get the 2 of you out of Eastside. Why? Because the gas line under that building has been broken since last winter, baby. The landlord at Davis Holdings would not return her calls, and she went down to the city offices and tried to file a complaint, and they did not return her calls either. The plastic bag with Rachel's belongings was sitting on the small wheeled table beside Khloe's chair. A nurse had brought it from the ER and forgotten to take it back. Khloe reached for it. The hospital gown inside had been cut up the side. The smell of smoke came out of the bag the moment she opened it, dense and oily and wrong. She did not let herself stop. She slid her hand into the gown's pocket. The little notebook was there. Spiral, red cover, curled at the corners from being carried in an apron, and then a coat, and then a purse. Her mother wrote everything in it. Grocery totals, Khloe's reading levels, the dreams she had at 3 a.m. that she did not want to forget by breakfast. Khloe opened to the last filled page. Across the top, in her mother's slanted, hurried handwriting, Davis Holdings landlord 6 calls no answer. She turned back one page. Hayes councilman's office refused to help. Receptionist hung up. The name sat on the paper the way a splinter sits in the pad of a thumb. Small and obvious, and the only thing in the room. Khloe slid the notebook into the inside pocket of her yellow raincoat. She zipped the pocket. She buttoned the flap above it. Then she folded her hands in her lap, the way a girl folds her hands when she has decided something and does not want anyone to ask her what. Beside her, the green wool clicked on. At 11 minutes past midnight, the penthouse on the 42nd floor of Cole Tower was lit by one lamp. Nathan had not turned on the overhead lights when he came in. He had walked the length of the living room without taking off the charcoal coat, opened the wet bar, looked at the bottle, closed the wet bar, and gone instead to the long window that ran from the floor to the ceiling above the harbor. Out there, far below, the city kept doing what cities did at night. Yellow street lamps, the slow, lazy red of a tugboat coming in, and to the east, where the docks bent toward the residential quarter, a small, persistent cluster of police cherries, still circling the place where East Side tenements had stood. The smell of the fire was on his coat. He had not noticed it on the drive over. He noticed it now. The private elevator pinged once. Marcus walked in with a manila folder under his arm, and a tablet in his hand, and the look of a man who had not slept and had no intention of it. "Sit down, Cole." Nathan did not sit down. Marcus laid the folder on the long walnut table. He turned the tablet around so the screen faced his employer. He spoke in the flat, fast cadence of a man giving a brief. "Forensics on the gas line. The cut is clean. Hex blade. Professional grade. The kind plumbers use on copper saddle joints. No corrosion at the cut site. This was deliberate. Done in the last 48 hours. Source of ignition. 3. Not 1. 3 points of fire across 2 buildings, all initiated within 90 seconds of each other. Accelerant traces in 2 of them. Whoever lit it knew exactly which floors had ventilation shafts and used them. This was not an arsonist. This was a crew. Marlin Avenue. Marcus tapped the tablet. The screen blinked to a still from a traffic camera. 4 box trucks angled across the intersection, at staggered intervals. Doors hanging open. Cones already laid by the time the first engine arrived. The trucks were white. The logos on their flanks had been blurred by the bad city camera, but Marcus had cleaned them up. The logo was a black anvil over the words, Castellano Construction and Freight. "It is a trap, Cole." Marcus's voice did not rise. It never did. He wanted you on the curb when the main went up. 2 birds. He buries you under his own building, and the city wakes up tomorrow morning to a press conference where the dead are blamed on the man who was standing closest to them when they died. Nathan's hand was resting on the back of a leather chair. He had not gripped it. He had not let go. Roman Castellano. He said the name the way another man might say a weather forecast. That old bastard has been waiting 17 years to take this city. He waited because his father told him on his deathbed not to move on us until I made a mistake. He must think I have finally made one. There is more. Marcus opened the folder. Photographs slid across the table. Long lens. 2 days old. Hayes coming out of a parking garage on Center Street at 10 past 9 in the morning. Hayes shaking hands with a man Nathan recognized in profile as one of Castellano's accountants. Hayes accepting a thick envelope tucked inside a folded copy of yesterday's Ashford Tribune. 100,000, Marcus said. Cash. The accountant came up from New York the night before. Nathan picked up the photograph. He held it under the lamp. He did not look at Hayes. He did not look at the envelope. His eyes had gone to the upper right corner of the frame, where a sliver of sidewalk was visible behind a parked delivery van. Standing on that sliver, half cut off by the edge of the photograph, was a small figure in a too large yellow raincoat, a pair of muddy Converse sneakers, a long copper braid hanging loose down one shoulder, and clutched against her ribs, unmistakable even at that distance and at that angle. The small gray rabbit. Khloe Bennett had been on Center Street that morning. She had been within 10 meters of the exchange. Her face, in the grain of the long lens, was tilted up, looking directly at Bradley Hayes. She had seen. Nathan set the photograph down very carefully on the table, exactly square with the edge of the folder. "This child," he said, "is the only living person who can place Hayes in the same 5 feet as Castellano money. She does not know yet what she saw, but Castellano's people have access to traffic cameras. They will pull the same image we pulled, and they will know inside 24 hours. Marcus was quiet, then. "Cole, you are not going to." "No." The word came out faster than he had meant it to. He turned from the window. His pale eyes, when the lamplight caught them, had the quality of a winter sea. Not a hair on her head. Not one. 2 cars on the Patterson woman's apartment by sunrise. 1 on the alley. 1 on the front. Quiet. Plain. "They are cousins from Buffalo, if anyone asks. I want eyes on every person who comes within 30 feet of that little girl until further notice. If a stranger holds a door open for her, I want to know." "And the mother?" "Rachel Bennett." Nathan walked back to the table. He pressed one finger on the photograph, on the edge of the yellow raincoat. Everything. Tax returns, employer records, school history, medical, who she dated in high school, who she owes money to, who owes her, doctor she trusts, friend she calls when she cries. I want her whole life on this table by noon. Marcus closed the folder. He did not ask why a man like Nathan Cole needed the medical history of a dishwasher from East Side. 8 years of working for him had taught Marcus that some questions answered themselves if a man was patient enough to keep his mouth shut. He left. Nathan stood alone in the lamplit room with the smell of the fire still on his coat, and the photograph of a 7-year-old girl in a yellow raincoat lying square on the walnut table, and he did not move for a very long time. 3 mornings later, the sky over Ashford was the color of ash before the ash has cooled. Mrs. Patterson's apartment on the 3rd floor of the Pier Lane walk-up was still asleep at 6 minutes past 5. The old woman snored softly in the recliner where she had finally fallen asleep around 2, knitting needles still crossed in her lap. Her front door had a deadbolt that needed lifting before it would turn, and the chain on top rattled if you were not careful with the angle. Khloe was careful with the angle. She had laid out her clothes the night before on the little folding chair by the guest bed, the yellow raincoat, the same Converse sneakers, scrubbed clean of harbor mud now, and stiff at the toes. A wool hat Mrs. Patterson had finished knitting for her on the 2nd night. The rabbit went under one arm. The notebook went into the inside pocket. She left a note on the kitchen counter under a coffee mug. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm walking to the bakery. I'll be back soon. Khloe." The lie was small. The walk was not. East Side Tenements was 1.25 miles from Pier Lane, and at that hour of the morning it was a blue, empty, salt-smelling kind of city, the kind that belonged to dock workers and bakers and nobody else. She walked in the bike lane along Marlin Avenue. A delivery truck slowed once to look at her, then sped up. A black sedan with tinted windows that had been parked across the street from Mrs. Patterson's building since the night of the fire pulled away from the curb 30 seconds after she did, and trailed her at a distance of 1 long block. She did not know it was there. She would not have minded if she had. The sight was a different kind of silence than she had expected. The yellow tape was gone. The fire trucks were gone. What was left was a long, low black scar along the curb where 3 buildings had stood, fenced off with chain link, and at the near corner, where the sidewalk turned, the city had not yet bothered to clear the small thing the neighborhood had built without permission. Candles in glass jars, half of them blown out by the harbor wind, and rekindled, and blown out again. Cellophane-wrapped flowers from the supermarket on 10th. Photographs taped to the chain link with packing tape, each one curling at the corner, each one a face Khloe almost knew. Mrs. Ortiz from the 2nd floor, who used to give her butter cookies at Christmas. Mr. Gallagher and his old yellow dog. Names written in marker on cardboard underneath. For my child. For my father. For the person who saved me. A man was standing alone at the far end of the memorial. He was not in the charcoal coat this time. The coat he wore was black wool, plain, the collar turned up against the wind, no earpiece, no wire visible at the cuff, no second man at his shoulder, no third man waiting in a car at the curb. Just him. In his gloved hands he was holding 3 things. A bouquet of white carnations, a small gray stuffed rabbit, factory new, one ear sewn to flop forward in exactly the way Chloe's rabbit's ear flopped, and a plain white envelope on which someone had written, in careful black ink, 2 words, "For Lily." He laid the carnations down first, then the rabbit, in a way that made it look like the rabbit was sitting up against the chain link, then the envelope, slid behind the rabbit, anchored under one of its small embroidered paws so the wind would not take it. He stood up. He did not say anything. He did not pray. Khloe stepped out from behind the burned half-wall. "You are the man from the fire." Nathan did not jump. He did not turn fast. The line of his shoulders made one small adjustment, the kind of adjustment a man makes when something he has already felt arriving has finally arrived. Then he turned, and his pale eyes settled on the small yellow shape at the edge of the rubble without surprise of any kind. "Your mother is alive," he said. "I called the hospital this morning. Dr. Carson upgraded her status overnight. She is going to be moved out of the ICU tomorrow." Khloe did not move closer. She did not move back. "How do you know my mother's name?" He did the unexpected thing. He lowered himself onto one knee on the wet pavement, and the height of him there was almost the height of her, and the wind moved his hair a little, and for the first time he did not look like a man, he looked like a person. "Because I have been trying to find out," he said, "who tried to kill her. And it was not me." She did not answer. She watched his eyes instead. Her mother had taught her this when she was 4 years old, sitting on the kitchen counter with a juice box. "People who lie look up and to their left, baby. People telling the truth look right at you and they let you stare." Nathan looked right at her. He did not blink. His pupils did not slide. He let her stare for as long as she needed to stare, and the not flinching went on long enough that Khloe felt, against her own will, a small shifting of the ground inside her chest. She lifted her chin toward the envelope tucked behind the rabbit at the chain link. "Who is Lily?" For the first time his eyes moved. Not to the left, down, to the rabbit on the pavement. He was quiet for what felt to a 7-year-old like a long, long time. "My sister," he said. The wind picked up a corner of the envelope and let it fall. "She died in a fire that looked very much like this one. 17 years ago. She was 9 years old." He paused. He did not look away from the rabbit. She had a stuffed rabbit, just like that one, gray. The left ear flopped. She would not sleep without it. Khloe, after a moment, took 2 careful steps closer. She did not say anything yet, but she sat down on the cold curb beside the envelope marked for Lily, and she set her own gray rabbit on the pavement next to the new one, and she let the 2 small animals keep each other company, the old and the new, while the man in the black wool coat stayed on one knee and did not, for the first time in 17 years of mornings, look away. The curb was cold through the seat of her jeans, and Khloe did not mention it. For a while neither of them spoke. The wind moved a candle flame on the chain link sideways, and the flame held on. Out beyond the rubble, a single seagull walked the perimeter of the site as if checking for crumbs, decided there were none, and flew off toward the docks. The 2 rabbits sat between them on the burned concrete, a small gray border between 2 people who had not yet decided what they were to each other. Nathan reached into the inside pocket of the wool coat. He took out a card, plain white, no company name, no address, a single phone number printed in a sober black face. He held it out across the space between them. "This rings on a phone that is always on, always. If you remember something from that day that does not fit, you call. You call from a friend's phone, from a payphone, from any phone that is not yours or your grandmother's. Any hour. There is no hour that is the wrong hour." Khloe took the card. She did not put it in her pocket yet. She turned it once between her thumb and her forefinger, the way she turned the spelling words she was studying for the Friday quiz, considering each side. Then she did something he did not expect. She unzipped the inside pocket of the yellow raincoat, and she took out a small spiral-bound notebook with a red cover, and she opened it across her knees as if she had been waiting for somebody to ask the right question. "My mother kept this. She wrote everything down. Bills she could not pay, books I needed for school, dreams she had at night that were too good to forget." The pages of the notebook fluttered. She turned past her own crayon drawing of a sunflower, past a grocery list, until she came to the spread her mother had filled in the last week of her life. She turned the notebook so Nathan could read. The handwriting on the page was the slanted, hurried handwriting of a woman writing fast at midnight after a shift. The first line, the most recent line, named a holding company and a phone number. The line above it named a different person. Hayes Councilman's office refused to help. Receptionist hung up. 6th call this month. Nathan's hand reached out for the page. It was a small movement. Most men in Marcus's line of work would have missed it. The fingers came out steady, but a quarter inch from the paper they did, the thing they had not done in 8 years. They wavered, just once, a small dry tremor at the second knuckle that was gone almost before it arrived. He took the notebook. He read the page again. Khloe was already speaking. There is something else. He looked up. At the parking lot, by the relief tent. After the man with the white hair finished saying you were a criminal, I saw him go behind the third black car, the one with the open trunk. There was a man waiting for him there, younger than him. Leather jacket, black, the zipper was broken. Whoever fixed it used snap buttons, and the buttons did not line up right. The collar was open. Nathan did not move. There was a scar, long, down the left side of his neck. It went under the jacket. Above the scar, on the side of his jaw, there was the end of a tattoo. I think it was a snake. It had a rattle at the top, where the head should have been. She paused. He gave Mr. Hayes a brown envelope, thick. Mr. Hayes did not count it. He put it inside his jacket, against his chest. He patted it. He did not smile at the man, but he smiled at the camera when he walked back. The smile he used at the camera was different from the smile he used at the man. Nathan's eyes had not left her face. What else? He smelled like cigarettes, Marlboro Reds, the red box. My mom worked at a diner before the daycare, and she said you can tell a man's brand from the smell of his coat in winter. The man had brown eyes. Not dark brown, the kind of brown that has yellow in it when the sun hits the side. He was maybe 30, maybe a little older. He was missing the small finger on his left hand, just the tip, from the middle joint up. She closed her mouth. She waited. Nathan was looking at her the way a man looks at something that has just shifted shape in front of him. You remember all of that, he said. It was not quite a question. It was not quite not. My mother taught me. Khloe's gray eyes were level with his. She said, when you are poor, your memory is the only weapon you can carry into a room nobody is going to let you bring a weapon into. She said you start practicing when you are little, or you never get good at it. Nathan was quiet for a long time. He knew the man. The scar, the tattoo, the missing fingertip, the broken zipper that had been broken since the spring of last year. Tony Morelli. They called him Snake on the inside, and not always behind his back. Roman Castellano's first man. The hand that ran the errands no captain wanted to put on paper. He had been at 3 of the meetings Marcus's surveillance had captured at the Concord Hotel. He had been in the photograph from Center Street, 2 cars behind the accountant, wearing the same broken zipper jacket. He had been the courier of the 100,000 on the morning Hayes had taken the cash. The little girl on the burned curb beside him had just delivered, without knowing she had delivered it, the one piece of evidence Marcus had not been able to put into his folder. A live witness, willing to talk, who could tie Bradley Hayes by face to a man directly inside Roman Castellano's circle. Nathan closed the notebook with great care. He held it for a moment. Then he handed it back to her, and she put it back in the inside pocket of her raincoat, and she zipped the pocket, and she buttoned the flap. Khloe Bennett, he said, you may be the most useful 7-year-old in the state of Massachusetts. She did not smile. She tilted her head. Was that a compliment, Mr. Cole? It was the closest thing I know how to give. He drove her himself. The car he chose was not one of the SUVs. It was an older sedan kept in the back of the garage for nights when nobody was supposed to know where he had been. The tinted glass was honest tinted glass, not the kind that made the news. He buckled the seatbelt across her himself because the buckle was stiff, and he turned the heat up 2 clicks because her sneakers were still damp at the toes from the wet curb. Mike's Diner sat on the corner of 9th and Foster, where the working part of Ashford gave up and the warehouses began. From the outside it looked the way it had looked since 1973. A low brick rectangle with a sign that buzzed in the rain, 2 front windows fogged at the bottom, and a hand-painted blue rooster on the door whose tail feathers had faded to almost nothing. A bell over the door rang when they walked in. The smell hit Khloe first. Hot syrup, strong coffee, something with butter on a flat-top griddle that had been seasoned for 50 years and would not be replaced until the building came down around it. Red vinyl booths along the back. A long Formica counter with chrome stools. A jukebox in the corner that nobody had played since the Carter administration. Maggie was behind the register, 63 years old, a pencil through her bun, reading glasses on a beaded chain. She looked up when the bell rang, and her face did something complicated and quick. Booth in the back is open, Mr. Cole. She did not ask who the child was. She did not ask why he was bringing a 7-year-old in muddy Converse to her diner at 6:40 in the morning. 21 years of feeding Nathan Cole had taught Maggie that questions were not part of the menu. She brought a hot chocolate in a chipped white mug, with a marshmallow already melting on top. She brought a grilled cheese sandwich, cut on the diagonal the way grilled cheese was supposed to be cut, with a small mound of crinkle fries beside it. For Nathan, she brought a black coffee in the same chipped style of mug, no saucer, no spoon, the way he had been taking it for 2 decades. She set the plate down. She paused. "Cute kid, Mr. Cole." Khloe looked up at her over the rim of the hot chocolate. "Am I his niece?" Maggie's eyes moved, just a flicker, to Nathan, and then back to the child. Her face was the face of a woman who had already learned not to react to anything that happened in her booths. "Sweetheart," Maggie said, "you look like a girl who is about to find out." She walked back to the counter without another word. Khloe set the mug down. She looked at Nathan. "No," he said, "you are not. But you are the bravest 7-year-old this state has put in front of me this year, and that has to count for something." He nudged the plate an inch closer to her. "Eat. The grilled cheese here is the only good grilled cheese left in the county. Maggie will be insulted if you do not finish it." She picked up the sandwich. She took a small, cautious bite, then a smaller one. She chewed slowly, the way a child chews when she has been raised on the kind of math that knows a sandwich today does not promise a sandwich tomorrow. He watched her eat the way another man might watch the news. What was your mother going to do that night? The question came out lighter than he had meant it to. Khloe wiped a fry on a paper napkin to remove the salt, then ate it. Night shift at Marlin's. They start at 7. She washes from 7 to midnight and walks home along Pier Lane because the bus stop's running at 11:30 and a cab is $6 she can spend on me instead. She took another small bite, but she had an interview Monday morning. A real one. Bookkeeping at the public library, daytime, health insurance. She had been studying for it on her break for 3 weeks. She bought a navy blue blouse from the consignment store on 8th and ironed it twice. Nathan filed it without showing he was filing it. A woman climbing. A woman on the brink of climbing out of the place that had been holding her down. A woman who was about to become inconvenient to someone, somewhere, who needed Eastside tenements to keep being what Eastside tenements had always been, the perfect target for an accident. Khloe set the sandwich down. She wiped the corner of her mouth with the napkin in the careful way her mother had taught her to wipe the corner of her mouth in places that were nicer than home. Then she looked across the table at the man in the wool coat, and her gray eyes were very steady. "Are you a bad man, Mr. Cole?" Nathan did not answer immediately. He set down the coffee mug. He turned it on the saucer ring it had not actually come with. A small habitual gesture that might have meant anything. "I have done bad things." He said it without theater, the way a man might say he had voted in November. "I have done some of them on purpose. I have done some of them because I was angry, and the things I did when I was angry are the ones I would take back if I could. But mostly I do bad things to stop worse men from doing worse ones to people who cannot protect themselves." He paused. "That is not the answer you were taught to expect, but it is the only true one I have." Khloe took another bite of grilled cheese. She thought about the answer the way she thought about a difficult word in a book. "My mother told me a good person is somebody who does the right thing when nobody is watching." She set the sandwich down. "On the day of the fire, nobody was watching you." She lifted her gray eyes to his. "And you called the fire trucks, didn't you?" Nathan did not answer, but the corner of his mouth, the right one, lifted by 0.5 millimeter. It was not a smile any photographer in this city had ever caught on film. It was the smallest, quietest, most reluctant smile a face had given in a very long time. It was the first one his face had made in months. A week burned down around the city of Ashford, the way only certain kinds of weeks burn. Ash 7 ran the East Side footage on a loop. Morning news, noon news, evening news. The Night Owl rebroadcast at 1 in the morning that nobody watched live but everyone heard about by Tuesday. Diana Holt had been quiet on the day of the fire and merely competent on the second day. But by the third day, she had a producer behind her who had read the room, and on the fourth day, her face went up on a billboard on Route 9, over the words exclusive, investigative. The truth about Nathan Cole. The piece aired Friday at 8. It was titled, in white letters that bled at the edges, The Dark King of Ashford. The opening shot was the charcoal coat at the curb on the night of the fire, Nathan in profile, Marcus a step behind him. The cut was matched to a long ambulance wail on the audio bed, and the wail had been sweetened in post until it sounded less like a siren than like a woman screaming inside one. They put grain on the footage. They graded the color cold. By the third commercial break, half the city of Ashford was certain it had personally seen Nathan Cole turn away from a burning building. City Hall opened hearings on Monday morning. Bradley Hayes climbed the rostrum in the same gray suit, the same wave of white hair, the same tie clip that caught the flash of the cameras. He had practiced his opening at home in front of his wife, who had not known he was going to use the phrase the coal era until she heard him use it on television. "We have allowed," he said into the microphones, "a known organized criminal to dictate the emergency response of a sovereign American city. We have allowed him to operate in plain sight for almost 2 decades. That ends today. I am moving for a full forensic audit of every business entity bearing the coal name, every contract holding any vendor relationship with the city, every property tax filing made under any of his shell holdings since 2007. We will leave no stone unturned. We will leave no rock unkicked." The chamber applauded. Detective lieutenants who answered to Hayes's office, not to anybody Nathan paid, served warrants at sunrise on Tuesday. They hit the bakery on Holcomb Street first. Cole's Bakery had been opened by a cousin of Nathan's mother in 1998, and the only thing the morning shift was guilty of was a slightly underproofed batch of sourdough. Officers in vests overturned the flour bins anyway. They pulled apart the walk-in cooler. They photographed the books, which the bakery's accountant kept in 12 clean-colored binders along a shelf above the office desk. They hit Cole Construction in Brookhaven at 9. They hit Cole Marine at the South Wharf at noon. By the time the last evidence box left the dock, 3 local news vans had been on site for the duration, and the words "Coal Empire under federal scrutiny" ran along the bottom of every screen in the city, even though no federal agent had been within a mile of any of the 3 buildings. They found nothing. The damage to the name was already done. Marcus slammed both palms onto the walnut table at the penthouse on Tuesday night. "Cole, they are going to bury you in a paperwork cycle for 6 months. By the time we come up for air, Castellano will have moved on 3 of our distribution routes and bought a 4th city councilor. I can put 2 men outside Hayes's house in Beacon Hill tonight. Nothing crude. A note under the windshield wiper. A picture of his daughter at her dance class. A reminder that he has people in the world who can be reached. He folds inside 48 hours. Nathan did not raise his voice. He did not raise it because raising it had stopped being a tool of his at the age of 26. "No." Marcus stared at him. "No," Nathan said again, more quietly. "That is exactly what Castellano wants. He wants me to behave like the thing he has spent a year telling this city I am. The minute we put a man at Hayes's gate, the minute a tire iron meets a windshield, the headline writes itself, and every story Diana Holt has been pretending to investigate becomes a story she does not have to pretend about anymore. We are not going to fight this on his ground. We are going to expose it on ours." "How?" Nathan walked to the long sideboard. He lifted a thick, tabbed file folder from the top drawer of the cabinet under the window. He carried it to the table and set it down between them, with the soft, decisive sound of a chess piece being placed. "Hayes has an offshore account at Cayman National Trust under the name of a holding company called Mariner Cove LLC. His wife is the listed beneficiary. Mariner Cove has received 4 wire transfers in the last 8 months from a shell company whose ultimate beneficial owner, 2 layers down, is Castellano's brother-in-law in New Jersey. The total is $2,300,000. He has met Castellano in person at the Concord Hotel 4 times since April. We have the room service receipts. We have the elevator footage. We have the parking validation slips." Marcus opened the folder. He turned 3 pages. He turned 3 more. "All of this is clean enough to hand to the federal prosecutor. Almost." Nathan did not sit. He stayed standing on the far side of the table, his fingertips just touching the wood. "What we do not have, what no federal prosecutor will move on without, is a living human being who can stand in a deposition and say, 'I personally witnessed Bradley Hayes accept a cash bribe from a known associate of Roman Castellano.' Without the witness, this is a ledger. With the witness, this is a conviction." Marcus looked up slowly. "The kid." The word hung over the table. Nathan's pale eyes did not flinch. He did not look away. He did not let the answer come out fast. "No, it was even, and it was final. We are not putting a 7-year-old in a federal courtroom against the Castellano family. Not while they are still breathing free air. Not while there is one other route open to us. That is not negotiable. Are we clear?" "Clear." "But," Nathan said, and now he sat down opposite Marcus and pulled the folder back across the table. "We may have already gotten what we needed from her without putting her on a stand. 3 days ago in the rubble at Eastside, that little girl described the man who passed Hayes the envelope behind the parking lot. She described him in enough detail to draw a passport photograph from her words. The man is Tony Morelli. He has a sealed federal warrant out of New York from 2023. He cannot afford to come within 100 miles of an FBI badge. If we can take Morelli alive, on our terms, in a place we choose, he will tell a federal agent everything Hayes did not pay him enough to keep quiet about. Marcus closed the folder. And the kid never has to walk into a courtroom. And the kid, Nathan said, never has to walk into a courtroom. Outside the long windows, the harbor went on glittering. The way harbors go on glittering whether or not anyone deserves to be looking at them. Down at street level, a delivery truck dropped off the early edition of the Tribune at the kiosk on the corner of 5th, and the headline on the front page above the fold read, in 72-point type, Cole faces reckoning. Nathan glanced at the paper through the long lens of the spotting scope on the credenza. He smiled. It was not the smile he had given the diner. It was thinner, older, a little dangerous. Let them say it, he said softly. Let them write 100 more like it. The bigger the headline, the longer the fall when the truth comes up underneath it. Room 412 at Street Mary's smelled of antiseptic and the cheap pink soap the housekeeping cart had wheeled past 3 times that morning. Rachel Bennett had been moved out of the ICU on Wednesday and into a private room on the 4th floor on Thursday. In a transfer, Dr. Carson had called miraculous and Mrs. Patterson had called unusual, and Khloe had not asked about because she already had a theory she was not going to test out loud yet. The bed had a window that looked east toward the harbor. The blanket the orderly had given her mother was a faded pink waffle weave. The hospital must have laundered 400 times. The bandages on her left arm went from her wrist to her shoulder, but she was awake. She had been awake for almost 2 days, in fact, and her voice was coming back in cautious patches, and she could lift the unbandaged hand far enough off the sheet to take Khloe's small one inside it. Khloe sat up on the edge of the mattress, one Converse swinging. "There is a man named Mr. Cole," she was saying, and she was saying it carefully, in the small, evenly weighted way a girl says something she has been waiting to say. "He is not bad, Mommy. He took me to a diner. The lady there is named Maggie, and she gave me a grilled cheese cut diagonal and a hot chocolate with 1 marshmallow. Not 2, because 2 is too sweet. He said I was the bravest 7-year-old in the state. He has a sister named Lily. She died. She was 9. He was the man at the fire." Rachel's fingers had begun very slowly to tighten on her daughter's hand at the word Cole. By the word fire, the grip had gone almost firm. "Baby." Her voice was a paper voice, but the worry inside it was not. "Sweetheart, listen to me. You are talking about Nathan Cole. He is Khloe. He is not a man you sit in a diner with. He is a name people in this city say with their mouths closed. Whoever told you it is okay to be near him, Mom?" Khloe's gray eyes did not move. "He called the fire trucks. Before the fire." Rachel opened her mouth to answer. She did not get the chance. The door to room 412 clicked once. The soft, polite click of a hospital door being opened by a man who wanted to make sure he was heard before he was seen, and Bradley Hayes stepped into the room. He was carrying a bouquet. Lilies. White ones. 6 of them in a fluted glass vase wrapped in clear cellophane, with a little white card stapled to the ribbon. He held the vase out in front of his chest, the way a man carries a bouquet for a photograph that has not been taken yet, and the smile he wore was the same smile Khloe had filed 3 days ago at the relief tent. The camera smile, the one that did not match the smile he gave to the man with the snake tattoo behind the 3rd black car. Khloe slid off the mattress and dropped to the floor on the far side of the bed in one smooth movement, the way a child slides off a couch when the cartoon goes scary, and she folded herself underneath the bed frame in the long shadow between the wheels. The rabbit went with her. The yellow raincoat was already on the floor beside the bed, where she had dropped it half an hour earlier. She pulled it over herself in a small, careful tent. Hayes did not see her. His eyes had gone straight to Rachel. "Miss Bennett, Bradley Hayes. I am the councilman for Ashford's 6th District. I came on behalf of the city to see how you were doing, and to offer my deepest, most personal apology for what was done to you and to your neighbors." Rachel's eyes flickered, exactly once, toward the floor on the far side of the bed. She did not give Khloe away. "Councilman, may I sit? I will not stay long. You have been through more than any person in this city should have been through, and you should be resting." He did not wait for her permission. He took the visitor's chair and pulled it closer to the bed, and sat down with the vase still on his lap. And after a moment he set the vase on the rolling tray table beside her water cup, with the small adjusting motion of a man arranging a room. "I want you to understand," he said, "that the city is on your side. I am personally on your side. Whoever decides to take responsibility for what happened on East Side Avenue is going to take it all the way. We have an extremely strong indication who that person is, but the case will be much stronger, much faster, with a statement from a survivor who saw what was done. He produced a slim leather portfolio from the inside of his jacket. Out of it, 2 things slid onto the wheeled table. One was a thick brown paper envelope, sealed with a small white sticker. The other was a stapled document, 3 pages, in dense 13-point legal type with 2 yellow tabs marking the lines where the signature would go. This is a sworn statement my office has prepared. Your attorney can read it before you sign. Your attorney's fee will of course be covered by the city. The substance of the statement is straightforward. It says that on the evening of the fire, you witnessed a man matching the description of Nathan Cole give an order to local police personnel to delay fire department access to the building. That is all. We have other witnesses to corroborate. Yours simply names what you saw. He smiled the camera smile again, and slid the envelope an inch closer to her hand. And this is a goodwill consideration from a discretionary fund my office maintains for victims of unforeseen civic emergencies. $50,000. To help with your medical bills, and your rent, and the early steps of what I imagine will be a long recovery for both of you. There is no condition on it. It is yours regardless. The statement is a separate matter. Rachel did not reach for either of them. Her voice, when it came, was very faint. I would have to think. Of course you would. He was already standing. He patted the side of the bed, 2 inches from her bandaged arm, in a gesture that did not quite touch her. I will come back tomorrow afternoon. There is no rush. Rest, Miss Bennett. The city is grateful that you are alive. The door clicked shut behind him. The footsteps moved away down the corridor, slowed at the elevator, stopped. For 30 more seconds, nobody on the 4th floor of Street Mary's spoke. Then Khloe came out from under the bed. She climbed up onto the chair Hayes had just left. She did not touch the envelope. She did not touch the lilies. She picked up the stapled document by its top corner, the way a person picks up a piece of evidence they have been told not to leave fingerprints on, and she read it. The words were grown-up words, and some of them she did not know. Affirms, witnessed, causal sequence. But she did not need every word. She needed enough words. And the enough words were sitting right there on the 2nd page in a single underlined sentence, that Rachel Bennett had personally observed Nathan Cole instruct the Ashford Fire Department to stand down. It was a lie. Her mother had been inside the burning building. Her mother had not seen anything that night except smoke and the inside of an ambulance. Khloe lowered the paper. She picked up the brown envelope. It was heavier than she had expected. She did not open it. She knelt down next to her Hello Kitty backpack on the floor, unzipped the front pocket, and slid both the document and the envelope inside. She zipped the pocket back up. She buckled it. She set the rabbit on top of the backpack like a guard. Then she climbed back onto the bed beside her mother and took Rachel's hand again, and her gray eyes were level and dry and almost too steady for a 7-year-old to have any business owning. "Mom," she said softly, "I have to make a phone call." The nurse's station outside room 412 had a beige wall-mounted phone with a coiled cord stretched and bent from 1,000 patients' relatives borrowing it. Khloe walked up to the desk on her muddy Converse and put both hands on the counter and lifted herself onto her toes. "Excuse me, I need to call my grandma. My mom is sleeping and I do not want to wake her up with the room phone." The nurse on duty was a soft-eyed woman named Pamela, who had 3 grandchildren of her own at home, and who had been watching this particular small girl come and go from 412 all morning, with a face that had not asked to be carrying what it was carrying. Pamela slid the phone across the counter without a word. "Take your time, sweetheart. Press 9 for an outside line." Khloe pulled the white card out of the inside pocket of her raincoat. She read the number once, the way her mother had taught her to read a number, then pressed the keys without looking. 9, the 10 digits. The line clicked twice and rang. A man picked up on the first ring, and his voice was the steady, uninflected voice of someone whose job had taught him to give nothing away to a wrong number. "Yes, this is Khloe Bennett. I need Mr. Cole. Right now. Please." There was a fraction of a pause that contained almost no air. "Hold." 3 seconds later, the second voice came on, and this voice she knew. "Khloe, what happened?" She kept her words short because her words had to be short. The phone was at a nurse's station. There were people walking past. A janitor was mopping the corner near the elevator, and the slap of his mop on the linoleum was a small, slow metronome behind everything she was saying. "The man with the white hair came to my mom's room. He brought lilies. He gave her an envelope of money and a paper to sign. The paper says my mom saw you stop the fireman. She did not see you do that. She did not see anything. I took the paper. I took the envelope too. 3 seconds of nothing on the line. Then Nathan's voice, exactly as level as it had been before, but somehow harder along the bottom edge. Khloe, listen to me. Are you somewhere a stranger can hear you? Sort of. The nurse let me use her phone. Then I am going to keep this short, and you are going to remember every word. Do not talk about the paper to anyone. Do not show it to anyone. Do not tell the nurse it exists. Do not tell your mother who you are calling. Do not trust anybody at that hospital wearing a uniform until I tell you it is safe. Are you with me? Yes. I am sending Marcus. He will be there in 15 minutes. The man you remember from the alley near my car the morning of the fire. Tall, black hair, 6'4". He is going to walk up to room 412 and he is going to be wearing a small silver pin on his lapel in the shape of an anchor. If a man comes for you and there is no anchor on his lapel, you do not go with him. You walk back into your mother's room and you push the call button and you scream. Repeat the part about the pin. Anchor on the lapel. Silver. Left side. Good. Stand inside your mother's doorway. Do not stand in the hallway. When Marcus comes, you go with him. He will get you out a way nobody can see. Your mother will be safe. I have had 2 men on her floor since she was admitted, dressed as orderlies. Do you understand? Yes. Hang up now. The line went dead. Khloe set the phone gently back into its cradle, smiled at Pamela, the smile of a girl whose grandmother had sounded fine, said thank you, ma'am, and walked back to room 412 without hurrying. She stepped inside the doorway. She did not go further. Her mother had drifted back into the half-sleep of the heavily medicated, and her hand on the sheet had relaxed. 14 minutes later, a tall man in a charcoal suit stepped out of the stairwell at the end of the hall. He did not look toward her. He did not have to. The pin on his left lapel was a small silver anchor about the size of a dime. Marcus reached the doorway and put one finger to his lips, and Khloe nodded, and her small hand closed around 2 of his fingers, and the rabbit went into the crook of her other arm. The Hello Kitty backpack she lifted by the loop on its top. He did not say a word the entire way down. They took the service stairs at the far end of the corridor. They came out beside the loading dock on the south side of the hospital, where a black Lincoln Town car sat idling in a no-parking zone, with its tinted rear door already half open. The drive was 31 minutes through morning traffic. The destination was a small flower shop on a quiet street in Brookhaven called Bridge Street Blooms. The shop had buckets of cold roses outside the front, and a hand-painted sign on the door reading closed for inventory. A narrow stair behind the cash register went up to the 2nd floor. A door at the top of the stair did not look like the door to anybody's home, and when Marcus knocked twice and opened it, the apartment inside was bright and warm and smelled, faintly and strangely, of cedar. Nathan was waiting in the living room. He did not speak first. He knelt where he was, on one knee on the small braided rug, and he held out his open hand the way a person who knows how children's bones move holds out a hand. Khloe walked across the rug and gave him the backpack. He took it without looking at her face. He set it on the low coffee table. He unzipped the front pocket. The envelope and the document came out together. He laid them side by side on the table. His face did the thing it did, which was nothing. But the fingers of his right hand, where they rested on the edge of the table, drew slowly inward into a fist, and the knuckles went the white they had gone 3 days ago at the curb of the burning building. Khloe, he said, quietly, this document is gold. This is not a copy. He brought this out of his office with his own hand. The metadata on the file his secretary printed it from is going to put his name on every word of it. And you saw him pass the cash to a man we can name. You saw him hand the same kind of envelope back to your mother. He is finished. He just does not know it yet. Khloe sat down on the sofa. She pulled the rabbit up under her chin. Mr. Cole, yes. Are you going to kill him? The question came out steady, and it came out from the small, clean place inside a child, where the moral arithmetic had not yet been complicated by adult words. Nathan crossed the rug and crouched down so that his face was lower than hers. No, his pale eyes did not move. I am going to do something worse to him. I am going to make him stand in front of the entire city of Ashford and tell them what he did with his own mouth. And then he is going to spend every remaining year of his life knowing that the 7-year-old in the yellow raincoat is the reason he is wearing a federal jumpsuit. The apartment above the flower shop did not own a clock that ticked, but it owned a radiator that did. Marcus had brought up a folded blanket of pale blue wool from a duffel in the trunk of the Lincoln, the kind of blanket whose tag said handmade in Vermont in cursive letters. He had spread it on the sofa, set a glass of water on the side table where Khloe could reach it, asked her once if she needed anything else, accepted no thank you with a single nod. and left for the night through the kitchen door that led down the back stair. Khloe had folded herself sideways into the cushions with the rabbit pressed against her sternum and the blanket pulled to her chin. She was asleep inside 7 minutes. Nathan sat in the armchair across from the sofa and did not turn on the lamp. The light in the room came from the street lamp on the corner of Bridge Street and Mercer, which was the unflattering amber of older sodium bulbs, and which laid down a long slanting rectangle on the wood floor between the sofa and his chair. Inside that rectangle, the small rise and fall of her breathing was visible. Outside it, his face was not. He sat with his elbows on his knees and his hands loosely folded. He watched her sleep. He watched her sleep the way men in his line of work watched a perimeter, without blinking for long stretches, and at some point an hour later he understood that he was not watching for a threat. He was watching her chest go up. He was watching her chest go down. He was making sure of it. At 12 minutes past 2 in the morning, she rolled onto her back. The blanket slipped half off her shoulder. She reached for it without opening her eyes, the way a sleeping child reaches, and pulled it up to her chin again, and her gray eyes drifted open in the dim, and she saw him. She did not startle. She had known he had not gone to bed. He was holding something small in his right hand, a thing he had taken out of an inner pocket of his jacket when he thought she could not see, and the street lamp light was just bright enough on the surface of it that she could tell it was a photograph. "Is that Lily?" He did not answer at first. He turned the photograph in his fingers once, a small reflex, and then he leaned forward and held it out across the rectangle of light so she could take it. She sat up halfway. She held the photograph carefully by its edges, the way her mother had taught her to hold any photograph older than herself. A girl of maybe 9 years old, long blonde hair, 2 crooked front teeth, sat on a wooden porch swing that was painted green. She was barefoot. She was laughing at whoever was holding the camera, a real laugh, not a posed one, the kind of laugh that came in the middle of a longer story. Pressed against her chest in both arms was a small, gray, factory-fresh rabbit. The left ear had been deliberately sewn to flop forward. "Lily," Nathan said quietly. "She was 9 in that picture. I was 19. It was the summer before." He did not finish the sentence yet. He sat back. The amber light caught the edge of his jaw. Our father was the man who held this part of Ashford then. There was another family across the river, the Morellis. They had been waiting 2 years for an excuse to make a move on him, and that summer they decided to make their excuse. They did not come at him. They came at the house. He paused. He did not look at the photograph in her hands. "I was at school in Boston, junior year, 2 days into the fall semester. The first phone call came at 3 in the morning from a captain of ours, and the second call came an hour later from the hospital. Our mother had been on the 2nd floor when the kitchen went up. She got Lily as far as the top of the stairs. The stairs went out from under them on the way down. The fire department reached them 11 minutes later. It was 8 too many. Khloe did not speak. I drove from Boston in 2.5 hours. The house was still smoking when I got there. The thing I picked up out of the parlor, out of the spot where Lily must have been sitting before the smoke woke her up, was that rabbit. It was burned along the back. The left ear had survived because it had been folded under her chin. He breathed out, very slowly, through his nose. "I have it in a wooden box in a closet on the 42nd floor. I have not opened the box since I sealed it the morning of her funeral." He let her have a minute with the photograph. "I took my father's chair the next year because he could not work with his hands shaking the way they were after, and because somebody had to make the Morellis answer for what they had done to my mother, and because I was 19 and angry and I thought rage was a kind of fuel that did not run out. I did things, Khloe. I did them on purpose. Some of them were to men who had earned what I gave them. Some of them were to men who had only been standing too close to men who had earned it. That is the part of the truth I do not get to put down." He looked at his own hands. "From the night of the funeral until 11 days ago, I did not let myself feel anything. Feeling is a weakness. Explanation is a weakness. Kindness is a weakness. Those were the 3 rules. I kept them for 17 years. I kept them through every door I closed and every man I buried and every December the 23rd when my mother's birthday came around, and I made sure to have a meeting scheduled so I would not be alone with the date." A small silence. And then a girl in a yellow raincoat that was 3 sizes too big for her shouted at me at the curb of a fire and asked me whether my mother had ever taught me any manners. Khloe set the photograph down on the blanket, very gently, so as not to bend the corner, and for the first time in 17 years, Nathan said, "I remembered that my mother had taught me. She had taught me a great deal. I had only buried it." Khloe pulled her knees up under the blanket. "Have you remembered yet what she taught you?" Nathan did not answer right away. When he did, his voice was so quiet she had to lean forward an inch to hear it. "She taught me," he said, "that a strong man is the one who stands in front of the people who cannot stand for themselves, not the one who stands above them." Outside the long window, the street lamp on the corner of Bridge Street and Mercer flickered once and steadied. The radiator under the sill clicked. Khloe lay back down on the sofa with the rabbit and pulled the pale blue blanket back up to her chin, and after a minute, very softly, in a voice almost too small to count as a voice at all, she said, "I think your mom would be glad you remembered." Nathan did not say anything to that. He sat in the armchair and watched her chest go up, and watched her chest go down, until the gray of morning began to show along the top of the window glass, and he had not, in 17 years of mornings, once been less alone than he was in that one. Marcus came up the back stair at 6:40 in the morning with a paper tray of 3 coffees and a white bakery box wedged under one elbow. He set the tray on the kitchen counter without comment. He set the box beside it. He nodded once at the figure asleep on the sofa, looked at his employer in the armchair, and said the only thing the moment required. "You did not sleep." "No, coffee." "Then," Nathan took the cup. The first swallow went down the way coffee goes down for a man who has not slept in 26 hours. He stood, walked to the small dining table at the front of the room, and unrolled a city map he pulled from a long cardboard tube on top of the bookshelf. The map of Ashford spread to all 4 corners of the table. He weighted each corner with whatever was at hand: a glass ashtray, a book of matches, a small stone shaped like an egg that had been sitting on the windowsill. The 4th corner he pinned with the white card he had given Khloe, which she had handed back to him at midnight without being asked, because she had already memorized the number. He lifted a black felt-tipped pen. "3 things at the same time," he said. 3. If we move them out of order, or if we miss a window on any one of them, the entire stack collapses, and we will be doing the funeral arithmetic by Sunday. Are you with me? Marcus pulled a chair over. With you? Nathan tapped the pen on the south side of the map. 1. Rachel Bennett. Castellano will know within 24 hours that Hayes failed to walk out of room 412 with a signed statement. The minute he learns that, he will conclude that the mother is now a liability, and within a window of 48 hours he will send a cleaner to Street Mary's. The cleaner will not look like a man with a gun. He will look like a respiratory therapist with the right ID badge. We move her out before that window opens. He drew an oval over the cross streets in Brookhaven, 3 blocks east of where they were sitting. There is a private clinic on Hartwell Street run by a man named Levi Aronson. Internist by training, did surgical residency at Mass General, walked away from his hospital appointment 2 years ago after he watched an insurance company kill a 14-year-old. He owes me nothing. He likes me less. But he runs his clinic off the books for people who cannot survive the paper trail, and he will take Rachel for a week, as a favor that does not put him on a list. How do we move her without lighting up the discharge system? We do not discharge her. Nathan capped the pen. Dr. Carson signs her out for a transfer to a specialty burn unit in Worcester. The transport is one of our ambulances, with 2 of our people in the front. The vehicle stops in Brookhaven for a fictional refueling and a real change of patient. The decoy ambulance continues to Worcester with a sandbag in the gurney for 120 miles. By the time anybody figures out the bag never had a pulse, Rachel Bennett will be in a treatment room on Hartwell Street, and her chart will say her name is Catherine Walsh. Marcus made 1 note in his small black book. Nathan moved the pen north. 2. Hayes. He has to confess in front of cameras, in his own voice, in his own words before noon tomorrow. If we let him sit until Monday, his lawyer in New York will have him on a private plane to a country that does not extradite. We invite him to dinner tonight at La Rouge. The restaurant is owned by a friend of mine, and the entire dining room will be closed for what the hostess will call a private event. There will be 1 table in the middle of the room, 2 chairs, 1 bottle of wine he will not drink, 1 small recording device he does not know is there, and 1 large one he will know about in about 11 minutes after he sits down. Recording device, plural. The small one is for me. The large one is the leverage. We sit him down. We play him the call from last Sunday between him and Castellano discussing the East Side trigger date, and we lay the materials Khloe brought us this morning on the same tablecloth as his own glass of wine. Then we give him a choice. Press conference at City Hall at 8 tomorrow. Full confession, full resignation, full immunity from federal prosecution that I have already arranged, and witness protection for him and his family inside 30 days. Or he walks out of La Rouge tonight under his own steam, and learns by Friday how short a man's calendar gets when Roman Castellano decides he is a leak. He will take it. He will take it before the entree. The pen moved east, to the docks. 3. Castellano. He will know Hayes. Flip the second Hayes stops talking on television. He will not run. He will not hide. He will do what an old man does when he realizes the youngest captain in his network is the one who put him in this position. He will come for me personally. He will want to be in the room. And he will be told, by a source he trusts because the source has been on his payroll for 8 months, that Nathan Cole is going to be alone at Pier 9 tomorrow morning at 10, doing a routine inspection of the fish boats, in the open, with no security. Will you be? I will be at Pier 9 at 10. Nathan's pale eyes did not move. But I will not be alone, and the 8-month source he trusts has been answering to me for 9. The federal task force will have eyes on every car in his motorcade from the moment they leave the Concord Hotel. Marcus's pen stopped moving. He looked up. Federal. Yes, Cole. Since when? Since 2 weeks ago. Special Agent Donovan, Organized Crime Division, Boston Field Office. He has had a binder labeled Castellano open on his desk for 5 years, and the only thing he has not been able to put inside it is one direct moving picture of Roman in the same frame as a felony. I am going to put Roman in that frame for him myself, on a wet pier, at 10 in the morning, with 20 agents in the warehouse on the north side and a rifle scope on the south side. He will get his picture. He will get the man inside it. He set the pen down. The map on the table had 3 small inked ovals on it now, each one circled, each one a piece of a 36-hour clock that had already started counting. Khloe sat up on the sofa. She had been awake for some time, listening, the way a child listens when she has decided that listening is a form of helping. She slid off the cushion in her socks. She walked across the rug to the dining table. She climbed into the 3rd chair, the one Marcus had not taken, and she folded her hands on the edge of the table the way a girl folds her hands at the start of a school day. The bakery box was still unopened at the corner of the table. She looked at it with the patient hunger of a child who had not been raised to ask for anything. Marcus, without saying a word, leaned over and slid the box in front of her and lifted the lid. 6 donuts. One had pink icing and small rainbow sprinkles. He turned the box so that one was the closest to her. She took it with both hands. "What can I do?" she said, around the first careful bite. Nathan did not look at her right away. When he did, his face was as level as it had been when he was drawing the ovals. "You stay here. You stay inside this room. You do not answer the door. You do not go to the window. You eat the donut, and the next one when you are hungry, and the next one after that. Marcus will be downstairs in the flower shop, and one of my people will be on the back stair, and another one will be on the roof across the street. That is the help I am asking from you. It is the hardest job on the board today." Khloe chewed. She swallowed. She looked at him over the top of the donut with the small, unimpressed gravity that had become, in 11 days, the look he liked least to be on the wrong side of. "Mr. Cole," she said, "if I stay here and do nothing, and you get hurt out there, I am going to be very angry with you." Nathan's mouth did the half-millimeter thing again. Understood. St. Mary's Hospital at 2200 hours was the kind of quiet that hospitals only get between the night shift's first round and the night shift's second. The motor pool gate at the back of the building unlatched at exactly 2 minutes past 10, when an orderly of Nathan's cycled out for a smoke break and forgot, on his way back, to swipe the badge that would have closed the lock. The black Lincoln rolled through. It parked in the second row of the underground garage on level B2, between a maintenance van and a doctor's silver coupe whose owner was upstairs delivering a baby. Nathan stepped out first. He had changed clothes. The wool overcoat was gone. He wore a charcoal suit under a dark anorak, the kind a hospital administrator might wear if he had been called in late. Marcus came around from the driver's side in a similar coat. 3 more men exited a second sedan, parked 1 row back. Nobody slammed a door. Nobody spoke. The 2 men waiting for them in the corner of the garage by the elevator did not see them coming. They had been told the entry would be from the front, the lobby, where a man named Cole would walk in with his lawyer and sign a visitor card at the desk. They had been positioned at the elevator instead, dressed in pale green hospital scrubs and white sneakers, with stethoscopes around their necks and laminated employee badges on their chests reading respiratory therapy. The badges were good work. Both photographs matched the men. The names were not on any payroll St. Mary's actually kept. The taller of the 2 had a needle in his right hand, capped, the kind a nurse might use to dose a port. The shorter of the 2 was watching the elevator panel. Marcus and the 2 men with him moved across the concrete in shoes Nathan paid extra for the soles of. and the entire encounter took 90 seconds and made no noise that traveled. The needle was lifted out of one gloved hand by another gloved hand. A forearm closed across the front of a throat in the trained, careful way that put a man to sleep without putting him in the morgue. A second man dropped at the same instant on the other side of the elevator, the way a man drops when a friend has tapped him at the soft place behind the ear. 2 minutes after that, both of them were zip-tied at wrists and ankles inside the storage closet next to the freight elevator, gagged, photographed front and profile by a phone Marcus carried, with the photographs already routed through a server in Quebec that would deliver them to a tip line at the Boston FBI field office at 6 o'clock the next morning, under the subject line Attempted Homicide, St. Mary's, September. Nathan rode the service elevator alone to the 4th floor. The elevator doors opened on a hallway in which 3 of his own people, in scrubs that had been pressed that afternoon by a tailor who knew not to ask questions, were already moving in the patient way that the actual hospital staff moved. A male nurse with a clipboard charted at the desk. A second walked the corridor with a chart. A third stood at the doorway of room 412, looked up the hall both ways at exactly the right pace, and pushed the door open for him without making eye contact. Rachel Bennett was awake. Her bed was at 30 degrees. The bandage on her left arm had been changed in the late afternoon. The light over the headboard was low. She had been listening to the small sounds of the corridor for almost an hour, because something in those sounds had told her, the way an animal can be told, that the night was not the night she had been expecting. She turned her head when the door opened, and her eyes went very wide when she saw the man in the dark anorak. "I am not here to hurt you," he said, before she could lift the hand on the IV. "I am here to make sure that nobody else does. There were 2 men waiting downstairs in your hospital tonight. They are no longer waiting. You and your daughter were the next item on a short list. We are going to take that list off the table, but to do it we have to move you out of this room in the next 15 minutes. Rachel's good hand had gone to the call button on the cord beside her hip. It rested there. It did not press. "You are Nathan Cole. I am. My daughter said you were a good man." Her voice was small, but it was not afraid. It was working hard. I did not believe her. I have spent a week telling myself she was just a child and she had been frightened, but her eyes moved past his shoulder, to the door, to the silent green scrub shapes of the men he had brought with him. She has never been wrong about a person. Not once in 7 years. Nathan did not answer. He did not have to. The door opened a second time without his permission, because the only person in 3 counties who used a door without his permission was the small one who had come up the back stair of St. Mary's in a yellow raincoat, tucked under Marcus's arm and had bolted out from behind him. The moment her shoes touched the 4th floor tile. "Mom." Khloe crossed the room in 4 steps. She did not slow at the bed rail. She did not pause for permission. She climbed up onto the edge of the mattress and folded herself against her mother's right side, away from the bandaged arm, with the rabbit clutched between them like a small gray witness. Rachel began to cry. It was the first time she had cried since the smoke. It was not a loud sound. It was a long one. Her good hand came up and cupped the back of her daughter's head and stayed there, the fingers catching on the tangle of the loose copper braid, and her shoulders shook one slow time. Khloe lifted her face. Her cheeks were dry. "Mom, he's good. He really is. He has a sister. Her name was Lily. She had a rabbit too. He is going to take us somewhere safe, and then he is going to make the bad man go away. I was right about him. I was right." Rachel looked at Nathan over the top of her daughter's head. She did not say thank you. She did not say I trust you. She said the thing that is harder to say than either, because it was the only sentence she had room for. "Where are we going?" "A private clinic in Brookhaven. Internist named Aronson. He has treated burn cases for 26 years, and there is no faster pair of hands inside 100 miles. The transport leaves the loading dock in 12 minutes. Your name on the trip ticket is Catherine Walsh, and the chart in the front of the ambulance reads, Transfer to Worcester Specialty Burn Unit. The decoy goes to Worcester. You go to Hartwell Street, 31 minutes door to door. We move you tonight. You sleep there. The entire situation is finished by tomorrow at noon, and the chart goes back into your real name on Friday morning with no record that any of this happened." Rachel closed her eyes for one breath. She opened them. Okay. Marcus was already at the doorway with a folded wheelchair. The tall nurse with the clipboard had a transfer form ready and a printed wristband with the name Catherine Walsh and a hospital number that did not exist. Khloe slid down off the bed first. She did not let go of her mother's hand. Nathan watched the 2 of them go past him into the corridor. the small one walking beside the wheelchair like a bridesmaid with a job, and the half-millimeter thing happened at the corner of his mouth again before he could stop it. Then he turned, killed the bedside lamp, and walked out behind them, and the door of room 412 clicked shut on a room where, beginning at exactly that moment, no one important to him would ever sleep again. LaRouge sat on the corner of Federal and Wharf, a narrow brownstone with a copper awning aged the color of an old penny. At 9 in the evening on the night after the hospital, the brass plate beside the door read, "Closed for private function." The chairs in the front bay window had been turned upside down on the tables. The hostess had gone home at 6. Inside, the dining room was lit by the warm, low yellow of 3 pendant lamps over a single dress table at the center of the floor. White cloth, 2 chairs. 1 bottle of Bordeaux uncorked an hour earlier to breathe. Nathan sat with his back to the door. He did not look up when Bradley Hayes came through the archway from the foyer. Hayes came in the way a man comes into a negotiation he is sure he is winning. The gray suit was the same. The white wave of hair had been freshly cut. He took in the empty room, the single table, the 2 chairs, the lone wine bottle, and his face wore the expression of a man who had concluded the silence around him meant Nathan Cole was finally ready to come to the table. "Cole, I will say I was surprised when your office called." His voice was even. "I will also say that I am pleased. We are civilized people. We do not have to do this in the press." Nathan did not stand. "Sit down, Bradley." Hayes sat. Nathan poured the wine for both of them. He set Hayes's glass in front of him. He did not push it. He reached into the inside of his jacket and brought out a small recorder. He placed it on the cloth between them and pressed a single button. The voice that came out of the speaker was Hayes's own. "Castellano, we do it on the timetable. I hold the engines back 8 minutes on Marlin. That is plenty of clock for Cole to walk into the smoke for the cameras and for the pressure on the main to do the rest. The money lands in Cayman by midnight." Hayes's color left him from the top of the forehead down. That is a deepfake. Voice synthesis. Anybody can. Nathan laid a manila envelope between them and slid out 3 things. A bank statement from Cayman National Trust, account holder Mariner Cove LLC, 4 wire transfers, total of $2,300,000. Elevator camera stills from the Concord Hotel, showing Hayes with 3 different members of Castellano's lieutenants over the past 6 months. The original document Hayes had left in room 412 at St. Mary's, with the inked signature line. Tony Morelli was picked up at 6 this morning at a motel in Quincy. He has been in a federal interview room since 9. He named you in the first 11 minutes. He named the pay schedule. He named the snake on his neck. Hayes had stopped breathing through his nose. "What do you want?" 8 in the morning. Nathan's voice did not lift. "City Hall press chamber. You will stand at the lectern, and you will read the statement that is in the bottom of this envelope. You will resign from the council in the same sentence in which you confess. You will hand to a man named Special Agent Donovan every record you possess of every payment Roman Castellano ever made you take. He will kill me. If you do not do it, I will." Nathan let the words sit. "You are missing something, Bradley. If you confess in that room tomorrow morning, the federal task force already has a deal pre-signed for your protection. You walk out under federal escort. Inside 30 days, you and your wife are issued names neither of you have used before, and Roman Castellano spends the next 11 years trying to find the trail of the men who handed him to me." He leaned forward by an inch. "If you do not, a courier from Castellano arrives at your door before noon tomorrow. You are not a man who has the constitution for what he sends. You will not last 24 hours. I am giving you a last chance because I have been told tonight by a very small and very stubborn person that there is no virtue in cruelty I do not need." Hayes's hand came up and covered the lower half of his face. He held it there. His eyes, above the hand, had gone a glassy red along the rims. He lowered the hand slowly to the table, and the white linen took a small smudge from the perspiration of his palm. "All right." His voice broke once on the second word. "All right, I will do it. Tell me what room. Tell me what time." Nathan slid the bottom page of the envelope across the cloth. "Read it tonight. Twice. 8 sharp. Wear the gray tie." At 8 in the morning, the press chamber of Ashford City Hall held more cameras than it had been built to hold. 200 reporters stood instead of sat. Diana Holt of ASH7 had taken the spot at the front rail at 6:53 by virtue of having shown up at 6:50. At 1 minute past 8, a side door opened. Bradley Hayes walked through it. He wore the gray tie. His hair did not have its usual wave. His eyes, when the lights found him, were the eyes of a man who had not slept and who had decided, in the half hour before sunrise, that not sleeping was the lesser of the available options. He climbed to the lectern. He set a single sheet of paper on the slanted top. My name is Bradley J. Hayes. I am the elected councilman from the 6th District of Ashford. I am standing here this morning to confess. I have accepted bribes from Roman Castellano in the total amount of $2,300,000. I knowingly delayed the response of the city fire department to the Eastside Tenements fire by approximately 8 minutes. That delay was intended to result in a catastrophic explosion, the death of an unspecified number of residents, and the framing of a private citizen named Nathan Cole, against whom I have made false public accusations. I am resigning from the city council effective at the close of this sentence. I am sorry. The room exploded. A wall of voices. The strobe of cameras going off at once. At the back, a man in a navy suit stepped forward. 3 men in identical suits closed in behind him, and Special Agent Donovan walked Hayes off the rostrum and into a black sedan idling in the alley. 2 miles away, on the top floor of the Concord Hotel, Roman Castellano had been watching the broadcast. He set his espresso down very slowly. A single dark line of coffee ran from the saucer to the edge of the desk and over. Send everyone, he said to the captain at the door. Today, I do not care what it costs. Cole goes down by sundown. 8 minutes later, the captain returned. Nathan Cole was at Pier 9, alone, inspecting the moorings on a fishing trawler. 10 in the morning. No security. The captain's source on Cole's payroll, a man who had been feeding the Castellano organization for 8 months, had been very specific. Roman put on his coat. It had been 6 months since he had last walked through the lobby of the Concord Hotel under his own power. Pier 9, 10 in the morning. The harbor under a sky, the color of slate. Nathan stood at the open doors of Warehouse 4 with his hands in the pockets of his charcoal coat. The water slapped under the planks. 5 black SUVs came along the access road in a slow line. They stopped 20 meters out. 10 men got out. Then the door of the second vehicle opened, and Roman Castellano stepped onto the pier, and his face was the dark red of an old wine left too long in the sun. Cole, today is your last day. Nathan did not move his hands. Roman, you walked into a trap. The lights came on from every direction at once. Halogen floods from Warehouse 4, more from the deck of the moored trawler. A loudhailer cut over the wind. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Weapons down. Hands behind the head. Now, 20 agents came out of the warehouse, off the trawler, around the corner of the freighter. A helicopter rose suddenly above the rooftops and hovered. Castellano's men froze in a ring of crossed red dots. Roman's right hand drifted, against his own better sense, toward his coat. A single rifle shot cracked from a sniper position on the warehouse roof. The bullet took the back of his right hand cleanly between the knuckles. The pistol he had been reaching for clattered onto the planks. Marcus, on his belly on that roof, racked the bolt of his rifle once and did not fire again. Roman Castellano went to his knees on the cold planks, and the sound that came out of him was not a sound a man like Roman Castellano was supposed to be capable of making. Special Agent Donovan crossed the wharf with his badge already in his hand. Roman Castellano, you are under arrest. Conspiracy to commit murder. Aggravated arson. Bribery of a public official. 44 other counts. You have the right to remain silent. He did not finish reading them. He did not need to. Roman, on his knees in the puddle of his own blood and seawater, was already crying. The ASH 7 noon broadcast went on the air without its usual graphics package. There was no rotating banner, no urgent red typography, no music bed. Diana Holt walked onto the studio floor in a navy blouse, sat in front of a single camera, and did not put a copy of her script on the desk. The light came up. My name is Diana Holt. I have been the lead investigative reporter at this station for 9 years. Last week I produced and aired a 30-minute special about a man named Nathan Cole, in which I called him, on the record, the Dark King of Ashford. I am sitting in this chair this afternoon to retract that program in its entirety. She did not blink at the camera. The fire at Eastside Tenements on the 3rd of this month was not caused by Mr. Cole. It was caused by Roman Castellano, who was arrested this morning at Pier 9 on charges of conspiracy to commit murder, aggravated arson, and 44 federal counts. Bradley Hayes accepted $2,300,000 from Castellano to delay the fire engines on Marlin Avenue by approximately 8 minutes. He confessed to that this morning at City Hall in his own words. She paused. Mr. Cole called the fire department before the fire was visible from the street. He ordered the perimeter cleared because he had been informed that the gas main beneath the building was minutes away from a detonation that would have killed every person within a 200-meter radius. The decision he made on that curb saved, by the conservative estimate of the fire marshal, between 300 and 400 lives. I owe Mr. Cole a public apology. I was wrong. I am sorry. The light went down. By 2 in the afternoon, the post had spread to every platform Ashford used. By 3, the hashtag number Cole saved use had moved into the regional trends column on 3 different networks. By 4, the same residents who had stood at the tape line shouting murderer into the dark were sharing photographs of their living children with captions written in a register they had not used about him before. But the city did not become simple. By 5, the opinion writers had begun the second-day pieces. Is Nathan Cole a hero, or just a better villain? One sub-headline read. The piece beneath it did not say he was good. It did not say he was bad. It said both things in a way that admitted neither could be put down on its own. The reply that traveled the furthest, the one that was eventually screen-capped across nearly every Facebook group in Ashford, came from a small account belonging to a 70-year-old woman whose profile picture was a knitted lighthouse. I do not know whether Mr. Cole is a good man. I do not know whether he is a bad one. I know that on the night of the fire he saved my granddaughter and her mother. That is all I have a right to know about a man. That is all I need to know. Eleanor Patterson, retired, Pier Lane. In a quiet upstairs apartment in Brookhaven that afternoon, 4 people sat in front of a small flat-screen television. Khloe was on her mother's lap. Rachel had a fresh bandage on her left arm and a soft cardigan pulled around her shoulders. Marcus had taken the armchair by the radiator. Nathan was leaning against the doorway between the living room and the kitchen, with a coffee cup in one hand he had not touched in 20 minutes. The screen ran the loop. Hayes at the lectern, Castellano on his knees at the wharf, Diana Holt in the navy blouse. Then the screen capture of Eleanor Patterson's 5 lines, set against a soft pale blue. Khloe tilted her head back against her mother's collarbone to look up at him. Mr. Cole. Yes, they are about to start liking you. Nathan's mouth did the half-millimeter thing. This time, for the first time in a week, it went a little further. The corner lifted. It was a small smile. It was a real one. I do not need them to like me, Khloe. What do you need them to do? I need them to see the truth. The rest of it is theirs to do with. Rachel, on the sofa, with one careful hand resting along the small of her daughter's back, did not say anything for a long moment. Her thumb was moving in a small circle on the wool of Khloe's sweater, the way a mother's hand moves when she is making sure of something she has not quite let herself believe yet. Then, without taking her eyes off the television, she said it. Thank you, Mr. Cole. It was 2 words. She did not stretch them. She did not dress them in anything they did not need. Nathan looked across the room at her, and at the small copper-haired figure curled into her side, and at the rabbit propped on the cushion beside them, and he did not answer with a sentence. He nodded once. It was, for a man like Nathan Cole, an entire reply. 2 weeks later, the recovery suite at the back of the Hartwell Street Clinic smelled like clean cotton and lemon balm. Dr. Levi Aronson kept a row of small herb pots on the south windowsill, and a cat that had wandered in off the street 4 years earlier had appointed itself the 4th member of his nursing staff. It was, that afternoon, asleep across the foot of the daybed. Rachel Bennett was sitting in a green wingback chair near the window with her feet flat on the floor in real shoes for the first time in a fortnight. The bandage on her left arm had gone from a heavy gauze sleeve down to a single thin wrap above the elbow. The skin underneath was the new pink color of healing skin. Levi had used the word miraculous that morning. On the rug at her feet, Khloe was drawing. The crayons came out of a tin Nathan had sent 2 days earlier. 48 colors. She was drawing a rabbit, gray, with one ear sewn forward. The knock on the door came at 4. 2 soft, even knocks. Come in. Nathan came in carrying a wicker basket of fruit and a slim chestnut-colored leather portfolio. He set the basket down on the side table. He laid the portfolio across the arm of the wingback chair, near her good wrist. Miss Bennett, I came by to thank you formally for trusting me through your daughter. Rachel folded her hands in her lap, the good hand on top of the bandaged one, carefully. Mr. Cole, I should be honest with you. I have not yet decided that I trust you. I trust Khloe. She has not been wrong about a person since she was 3. I know you saved both of our lives. The other things I am still working on. Nathan inclined his head. He looked, if anything, faintly pleased. That is an honest answer. I will take an honest answer over a kind one any day of the week. He nodded toward the portfolio. That is for you. Open it when you are ready. Or do not. What is it? 2 papers. The first is a key and a lease for a 2-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor of a building called Riverside Heights, on Linden Street, 3 blocks from Lincoln Elementary. There is a small balcony that overlooks a courtyard with a play structure. The lease has been paid for 1 year, and it is in your name. The unit is owned by a woman named Charlotte DeWitt, 68 years old, lives in Vermont. She does not know either of us. She had approved your application before she heard my name. He paused. The second paper is a job offer. Cole's Bakery on Holcomb Street is looking for a head bookkeeper. $48,000 a year. Full medical for you and Khloe, including dental and vision. 3 weeks of paid vacation in the first year. I do not own the bakery on paper. It has been in the name of a cousin of my mother's since 1998. The hiring decision is hers. She has been told, through a friend, that there is a woman with 3 years of accounting coursework and an interview scheduled next Monday at the public library. She would prefer the woman with the interview at the library. Rachel was quiet for a long time. She picked the portfolio up. She did not open it. Why? She said. Why are you doing all of this? Nathan crossed the rug. He took the wooden chair on the other side of the small round table and turned it to face her. He sat. He set his hands on his knees. 17 years ago, he said, I lost my sister. She was 9. There was nothing I could do that night. I have spent every year since trying to be the kind of man who would have done something if he had been there. I have not always succeeded at that. The list of people I owe a better version of myself to is longer than I am ever going to live to repay. He looked, briefly, at the rug. I cannot fix the past, Miss Bennett. I am not naive enough to think money or apartments or jobs at bakeries fix the past. But I can do this much, and this much is what is in front of me. So this much is what I am going to do. Rachel looked across the room at her daughter. Khloe was holding up the drawing for inspection, head tilted, one finger considering whether the rabbit needed another whisker. Rachel let the breath she had been holding go. Yes, she said. All right, thank you, Mr. Cole. 1 month later, the press auditorium on the 2nd floor of Cole Tower had been opened to the public for the first time in its history. The room held 300 chairs. Every chair was filled by 10 in the morning. The standing space along the back wall was 3 deep with reporters from outside the city. Network's Diana Holt had once worked alongside on stories about other people had sent their own anchors. The lectern at the front of the room was simple wood, not the polished stage Hayes had used at City Hall, and behind it a single banner had been hung from the ceiling on 2 cables. The banner read, in white letters on a deep navy field, The Lilly Foundation, for a safer Ashford. Nathan stepped onto the stage at 10 sharp. He wore a dark suit and a slate-gray tie. He had not given a public address in 14 years. He carried no notes. Good morning. My name is Nathan Cole. I am announcing today the establishment of a community trust, which will be incorporated under the name of the Lilly Foundation. The foundation is named for my sister, Lily Cole, who died in a house fire in this city in 2007, at the age of 9. Lily would have been 26 this December. She is not here to be asked what she would have wanted me to do with the rest of my life, so I have made some guesses. The foundation will pursue 5 things, beginning today. He lifted one finger. 1. The land where Eastside tenements stood will be rebuilt. The new development will be named Lily Court. It will contain 200 units of permanently affordable housing, to be offered first, with right of first refusal, to every former resident of the tenements who held a lease on the night of the 3rd. Nobody will be displaced. Nobody will be priced out. Construction begins in March. 2 fingers. 2. Lily Court. And 3 additional projects already entering planning will create 150 long-term jobs in construction, building management, and tenant services. Hiring priority goes to families who lost their homes in the fire. 3. Full scholarship support for 50 children from the Eastside catchment, from elementary through college. No income cap, no merit threshold, renewable on the single condition that the student remains enrolled. The first cohort begins this academic year. 4. A free community clinic on the corner of Hartwell and 10th, to be directed by Dr. Levi Aronson, who has agreed to leave private practice to take this on. The clinic will treat anyone who walks through the door, regardless of insurance, regardless of paperwork. 5. Every senior staff member in every business that bears my name will mentor 1 student from the scholarship cohort, 1 hour a week, for the duration of that student's enrollment. That includes me. He set both hands on the lectern. That is what we are doing. The funding has already been transferred to a separate trust. The trust is governed by a board on which I do not sit. The first audit is scheduled for September. He took 2 questions. A reporter from the Tribune, second row, raised his pen. Mr. Cole. Critics will say this announcement is image rehabilitation. Is it? Nathan did not flinch. It may be. You may decide that for yourself. I am not standing here this morning asking anyone to call me a good man. I am doing what I think is right. I am doing it late. Late is a worse answer than on time. It is a better answer than never. He took one more. He thanked the room. He stepped down. Marcus met him at the wing of the stage. Cole. His voice was low, just for the 2 of them. This is not how we work. Nathan did not slow his pace. It is how we work from now on. In the 3rd row, near the aisle, Rachel Bennett held her daughter's hand. Khloe was wearing the new pleated skirt and navy blazer of St. Mary's Academy, which had received her, on full scholarship, 2 days earlier as a transfer student, and which she had decided to like by lunchtime on her first day. Her copper braid had been redone that morning by a mother whose left hand was finally steady enough to braid. Khloe looked up at the man stepping down from the stage. She did not call out. She lifted one small hand and waved. Nathan saw her. He raised his own hand, just one finger lifted off his thigh. The smallest possible signal a man could send across a crowded room. It was, between the 2 of them, the entire conversation. The narrator's voice steps forward one last time. Sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one that finally asks the question every adult has been too afraid to ask. Sometimes a man who has forgotten what it is to be human remembers. In a single afternoon, because a 7-year-old in a yellow raincoat is willing to point her finger at him and demand a better answer than the one he has been giving the world. There are families we are born into. There are families we choose. And there are families like Khloe and Nathan that we win back from the people who tried to take them from us. What this story leaves behind is not a tidy lesson. It is a quieter one. A child sees the world more clearly than most adults will admit. A grown man's silence is sometimes mistaken for cruelty, when it is actually a kind of work he has not yet learned to explain. The strong are meant to stand in front of the weak, not above them. And the smallest gesture made when nobody is watching can be the truest measure of who we are. If this story moved you, please take one moment to subscribe to the channel and tap the bell so the next story finds you the day it goes up. A thumbs up and a share help us keep telling stories like this every single day. We would love to hear from you. Have you ever met someone who arrived in your life the way Khloe arrived in Nathan's? Small and unexpected and exactly on time. Have you ever, like Nathan, spent years mistaking your own silence for strength, only to be reminded by a person you did not see coming that real strength looks like protecting someone smaller than yourself? Tell us in the comments. We read every one of them. We think about the ones we cannot reply to. The ones we can, we will. To everyone watching right now, we wish you a strong body and a kinder week than the last one, and quiet evenings with the people you love. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you in the next story.